Hey guys, Chad from Winning Tennis here, and today's video is going to be all about the serve and how to improve it. This is going to be a little bit of a lengthy video, but I think it'll really pay dividends for you if you watch the entire thing. We're going to be talking about two aspects of the serve that are extremely important. The first one is the racket drop. The second one is pronation. If you can master these two aspects of the serve, you will transform your serve into an ordinary serve to a almost professional looking serve. And I guarantee that the results are going to be incredible when you get on the court and you start acing people and people are not able to return your serve. You're going to love that. So let's get into it and see how we can improve both of those things. If you've never had a great serve, chances are that you are not getting into a great racket drop position and you are not pronating properly. So I know what you're going through because I am a club player and I have gone through the trials and tribulations of trying to learn a great serve. When I used to serve, I would just have take the racket back like this when I was a beginner in the waiter serve, and I would just come through like this. No pronation, very little racket drop, and I was serving maybe in the 80s because I had a very live arm. But one day I decided, you know, what are the pros doing? Let me go out and try to hit like the pros. So I went out and I was trying to develop a racket drop, but I couldn't really get it. And there's really two parts to this, okay? Today I'm talking about the racket drop and the pronation. So for the racket drop, that's when the racket comes into this position here, okay? The reason that it does is because it allows momentum to come up and to contact, okay? So we have all this way to come up. So the racket is coming back here and then it's coming up. Whereas opposed with a waiter serve, we might be just going from here, okay? So if you think about it like, say like an aircraft carrier, a plane taking off needs a certain amount of space to take off. If you cut that space down to, let's say, a third, it's not going to get off the aircraft carrier or get off the ground. So when you do a waiter serve, you're basically cutting off 2/3 of the momentum. And that's why a waiter serve will never have as much power as a real serve. So what we need to learn today is a great racket drop and proper pronation. And I've gone through many courses, many videos, books. I've watched and studied players, and I think I've developed a couple of ways that I think are the best to develop the racket drop and the pronation. Okay, so let's look at the racket drop first.
All right, so I went out to the courts a couple of days ago and I took this video. You can see here I'm just practicing my serve, nothing fast. And here it is in slow motion. And you can see I have the racket pointed out to the tip on the right. And as I come up, I'm going to bring the racket from right to left over my head, achieve a racket drop right there. You can see the racket is perpendicular to the ground. And look as I come up on edge. And I come up on edge and I pronate. And you can see that I came up on edge and now the racket's facing the other way. Take one look, again, at regular speed.
Now, typically when people play, a lot of times they're very stiff and they come back here and they end up stopping right around here. And that might be you. And you have a very shallow racket drop, something like this. Or maybe you're not even doing that. I've seen players that go back and they're like from here, okay? The racket drop is, for me, the concept was, I thought that it was somehow almost like a revolving thing, like you revolve and it just happened. I couldn't get that racket drop for some reason, and it really bothered me because I would see people doing it and I just couldn't get it. I was just too stiff. I could not allow my racket to drop, and I was always serving like this. And then one day I discovered a notion about the racket drop that really, really helped me and allowed me to have a great racket drop. And it's this, okay? Here's the secret sauce. It's not so much that it happens on the full part of the swing and the racket just drops because you're having a loose wrist and it comes back and comes up. It's not like that. Think about it as this, as if you are placing the racket in this position here, okay? Now I'll show you how to do this. This is a process, not a process, but it's actually a few steps that you have to do. First thing you're going to do is when you start the serve, I want you to start in this position here, okay? And if you see a lot of the top servers, once they get the racket up here, they're here. And I showed this with a video I made on Roger Federer's serve analysis. And you can see when he raises the racket, the tip of the racket is pointing out to the right. Okay, so we want to get that racket tip pointed out to the right. And you can hold it up here, you can hold it here if you feel more comfortable. I typically like holding it about right here. Okay, so we're going to cut that part out. We're just going to start here. And we're going to do this really slowly, okay? We're not going to go fast. This is the first part. The second part would be to bring the racket over your head here, okay? So I will turn this way so you can see what it looks like from the side. I will bring the racket to this position, okay? So it's going to the back of my head here. Okay, so we're going here, step one, step two, okay, we have the racket going behind us from the right to left motion for righties, lefties opposite. And from here, now here's the big takeaway, we're going to place that racket down right there in the racket drop, okay, nice deep racket drop like this. So we're here, we bring the racket over our head and then we place it here. Once we have the racket in the racket drop position, we're going to come up on edge and pronate. But that's a different thing. For now, just come up. Okay, and when you do come up, make sure that the strings of your racket are facing the ball. Okay, so let me show you. So I have my racket like this, where the edge is kind of against my back. And if I was to come up, it would look like this. So when you come up, we're going to turn out the last moment, just like that. But when you have the racket and you're back here, as you can see, the edge of the racket should be on your back. Now, again, like if you were to come up like that, if you were to come up, you'd be hitting the ball like this. So when you come up, we need to turn here, and that's pronation. And then, of course, once we do come up here, then we're going to turn again, which I'll show you. Okay, so that's what you need to practice for the racket drop. It took me hundreds and hundreds of times over the course of several nights. I was just watching tennis on TV, and I would get into this position where I would hold the racket here, come over my head, drop, come up. Because if you think about it, it's a very subtle concept to understand, but you're actually kind of putting the racket in this position and then coming up. And if you go slow enough, over time it starts to feel more natural. And then instead of feeling like I am placing the racket here and then I'm going, it's going to be blended into one motion, and you're going to do it slowly at first, and then you can start going a little faster. Okay, going a little faster, and then eventually you'll get to the point where you're going full speed. So you're here, place the racket, come up. I'm not saying it's full speed, but place the racket, come up. And you'll notice that you start having a very beautiful deep racket drop. Okay, just like the pros. Because it's not so much that you're in full control, because you're bringing the racket up and you're putting it here, and then you're coming up. It's not like your hand just operates wildly and you have no control of it, and you can't put it down. You can put it right, you can put it as deep as you want, as deep, as flexible as you can go. For me, I would say that's about right here, but I usually put it maybe a little higher up when I go, because it's kind of hard to really stretch down. But I go right here and I come up, okay? So that's the racket drop. That's going to totally solve your issues with the racket drop once and for all. Again, here, here, come up. Keep practicing that until it blends together. And then, you can involve the toss. So you would toss the ball and then go. So you would toss, and then go. Toss, and then go. Boom. Get perfect racket drop. The next part of the equation is the pronation, okay? So now you got to the point where you're coming up. Now, if you do this right, the racket is going to be like this on your back, as I said, and when you come up, if you don't turn the hand out, then you're going to hit the ball right on the side of the racket, which is not good because you'll never be able to get the ball on the court that way. So when you come up, the racket head turns out like this. So let me move back a little bit so I can demonstrate that. So when it comes up, you're turning out. So when it comes up, you're turning out. By the way, this is my new place. This is my living room here, my new living room. So, you know, it's a little different than the old place. So just by turning out, and I should mention, by the way, continental grip, okay? But when you do come up and you turn out, that's gonna be half the pronation right there. But the way I think about it is, the way I learned pronation, because I told you I had that waiter serve and I would come through like this. And pronation happens, this is pronation, basically where you have a 90-degree turn on the wrist. And by the way, this is a great pronation drill to do. I try to do this, and I have my students do this every time we get together. I have them do about 20. Helps build up the forearm muscles and the wrist as well. And that's what you're basically doing up here, but in a little bit different way. So the way that I learned pronation to myself was I just kept practicing that over and over. What it would be like for the racket to come up on edge, turn, and then turn again. Turn, turn again, come through. So just like with everything that I learn and everything that I like to teach, I like to go really slowly at first. That really helps me. If I go too fast right from the beginning, I can't learn it. So I have to break it down, especially for myself, because I'm such a slow learner when it comes to, you know, body movement things. Really, really, really slow. So I would come up on edge, and then I would turn, and then I would turn again and feel what that's like to have that pronation. So if I'm teaching myself pronation, I'm going to come up on edge, I'm going to turn, and then I'm going to turn down again and come through. And I just kept practicing this motion right here over and over and over and over. And then I actually developed my racket drop later on. So even though I didn't have a great racket drop and I was coming from here, I was able to pronate and still start picking my pace up. Because when you pronate, the racket is going like this into the ball. It's two-dimensional instead of one-dimensional. So instead of the racket just coming straight forward like this, it actually comes and turns. And that's like a force multiplier, and that's what it is on the forehand and the backhand and the volleys and the slices. You need force multipliers on every shot to really have a greater impact on the ball, hit it harder. Okay, so I would practice that over and over. Over and over and over, over and over again. And then I would go out and I'd hit some serves and I would do it slowly. I would just hit the serves and go slowly, slowly, slowly. And I started picking it up, started feeling more natural. Every time I would come to the court, I kept doing it. And I just kept feeling like, okay, I got it now. And now I do it and I don't even think about it. As a matter of fact, I took some video recently and I saw myself pronating and it looked almost, you know, I would say perfect. I don't want to sound overconfident or toot my own horn, but it looked really good, looked perfect. So, and I wasn't even trying in my mind to think about pronation. I was concentrating on the racket drop. So when you blend these two things together, the racket drop and the pronation, you have most of the serve covered. Of course, there's jumping into the serve, the timing and all that stuff. But right now, if we can get to that racket drop, where we're coming through like this and we come up, and I gave you a lot of it already because when you do come up, you're going to have to turn out to hit the ball. You just turn the racket over one more time right here. So when the strings come up, the hitting side is here, right here. And then we turn out, and now the hitting side is facing this way. And it's really important that you wait until the last second to do this. because if you pronate too soon or you pronate too late, it affects the shot. And one thing that's going to make this really difficult for you is that when you pronate, you have a good chance of hitting the frame if you don't do it right or hitting a wrong angle. So it took me a while to learn the pronation. I didn't concentrate on any other aspect of the serve. I would just toss the ball and just kind of practice the pronation. And that's what I suggest is the racket drop and the pronation. I would start first with the racket drop because that already teaches you a little bit of pronation by having the racket in this position. And then once you get this, you can work on the pronation. Or if you feel more comfortable, work on the pronation and go to the racket drop. Really, there's no wrong or right. I would just go with the racket drop first because that happens before the pronation. I hope this video really helps you in developing your serve. Go out and try this, and if it doesn't work right away, keep practicing it. You know, the Australian Open's coming up. If you're watching this video soon after I put it out, or if you're not, there's always other Grand Slams and tournaments. Put the TV on, or put YouTube on, watch some tennis, or watch your favorite sporting event, and sit there and just practice this. Just keep practicing, because even the best players in the world still have to go over the fundamentals. And just practice. And that's what I did, hundreds and hundreds of times, every night, for weeks on end, and I guarantee you, you're going to make great progress, and your serve will never be the same. Not only that, it's going to look awesome. You got people going to say to you, whoa, what did you do to your serve? You look like a professional now. And you're going to see the results. So, if you like this video content, I would very much appreciate if you share and you subscribe to the channel. I will be putting more great video content out in 2018. Thank you for watching.
Yo, check out my latest videos right here, this one and that one, and there's the subscribe button. Very simple. You press that button, become a subscriber, and you get a whole lot more video content coming out in 2018, baby.